Hi everyone, we're back with another quick take. This is Varun and Nisha from the Edge podcast of CHROs. We've got Bhagyashree Pancholy with us again, who again, we sort of started this podcast with. We did a very first episode with her, and for references, I'll also link down both the episode that we did with her. Essentially, we to start this entire brand, right? We thought the best way to do it was to just get into the fine print of remote work and essentially everything that was around the periphery of the topic. And Bhagyashree did an amazing job covering that. So please be sure to check that out as well. And I think let's sort of just straight dive in. So this episode entirely is just focused on two major themes that me and Nisha have sort of been noticing, right? One of them is talent mobility, that we're seeing a mass exodus from a lot of different places. Cities sort of coming back, companies, bigger companies. I'm talking about FANG level ones, saying, "Hey, you need to come back to office. We're giving you deadlines." In fact, I'm seeing those same trends happening in India as well. The other interesting part is that there's something called a digital nomad visa also right now, something that, to be honest, I also wasn't aware of. So stay tuned and check all of this out in the episode. So Bhagyashree, first at the very basics, right? Just tell us what a digital nomad visa is and which other countries that are sort of offering it. And also please hint that if we can also get it or not.
Sure. So, hi everyone. Digital nomad visas actually started last year, and in fact, Germany was the first country in the world to offer a 90 days freelance visas. And digital nomads, for the longest time, they were kind of working illegally from different countries. But with the influx of remote work and how everybody wanted to travel and work and be creative and earn a decent livelihood, countries did realize, especially some of these Caribbean countries who were predominantly based on tourism, and because of the lockdown, they weren't able to earn that much. They thought that it was a good idea to offer something like digital nomad visa, which essentially legalizes working in those countries. And this is how digital nomad came into being. And there are about 18 countries in the world right now that are offering it, right from Iceland, Germany, Estonia, Portugal, Czech Republic, I think a lot of these Caribbean islands, Bermuda, Bahamas, and then you have some other countries also they're offering. uh, the good thing about digital nomad visas is it's actually the legal way of working in those countries. And these are actually available for people who are freelancers or entrepreneurs or anyone, depending on which country you're applying. Not all countries have the same requirements, but depending on countries where you're applying, they may also ask you to work for a company uh, which is not situated in the country that you're applying for digital visas. For example, the Croatian digital visa can be obtained by people who are freelancers, independent contractors, entrepreneurs who don't have a legal entity in Croatia, or any employee who's working for a business that is not situated in Croatia.
I just have one question there, Ravi. Sorry. So if I have digital nomad visa from Croatia, can I work in some other country that is offering a digital nomad visa as well, like Portugal, for example?
Or if I have a visa from Croatia, I only work in Croatia.
Yes. So the important thing to remember is that if you have got a digital visa, a nomad visa of one particular country, you are eligible to work in that one particular country. The interesting visa that is offered by Dubai also offers this, and UAE also offers a freelancer visa, is that Dubai and UAE both are tax havens. So they are, countries where you don't have to pay taxes. And Dubai one particularly would also allow you to sponsor your family. Not all digital nomad visas would allow that, but Dubai does. And Dubai and UAE are basically becoming a hotspot when it comes to digital nomad visas because they're tax haven. In certain other digital nomad visas, depending on the treaty, your country or the person who is applying for the visa has with the country they're applying the visa into, what are the tax treaties like, and if that digital nomad visa would make them liable for taxation in their country or not. Like, for example, in Portugal, you may become liable for taxation and social security benefits payments if you obtain a digital nomad visa of Portugal. In other countries, you may not. But all the countries would require you to have a certain amount of bank balance or a proof of employment or sufficient funds. So let's say for Iceland, it has to be more than $5,000 a month. You have to earn, and a person has to earn more than $5,000 a month. And that would, of course, and that depends from country to country. So it's not that everything is same, so people can pretty much apply anywhere and everywhere. These are very, very specific countries with very, very specific set of regulations and eligibility criterias.
All right. So, Bhagya, you were also saying that this is affecting talent mobility in different ways, right? Can you tell us in detail how is this affecting talent mobility? What have been some of the recent trends that you have been observing?
Sure. So one of the biggest uh, trend that has come up with people applying for digital nomad visas is certain countries who are giving digital nomad visas would only give it to people who have these stronger passports. Let's say, people who have an American passport or people who have a European Union country's passport, because these are very, very strong passports. As opposed to these visas may be denied for a lot of people who have weaker passports. A lot of Indians also may find it very, very difficult to obtain those visas in different countries. And then the second trend that has emerged is that a lot of companies are now thinking of using digital nomad visas as a substitute to work permits or to business visas, which is actually a problem. And that shouldn't happen, because the purposes of all three visas are totally different. And this has to be kept in mind, that digital nomad visas are in no way a substitute for work permits or business visas. Even digital nomad visas would make you would make an individual like restricted in undertaking certain activities, which business visa may allow or which work permit may allow. So definitely do not think that this is a substitute to the other two visas. Um, how talent mobility is strictly affected is that I've started to see a lot of people from North America and Europe apply for these visas and move to these beautiful, beautiful countries which are offering these visas. And that has essentially created two classes of employees within an organization: employees who can work remotely and employees who can't work remotely. And there's a lot of discrimination, there's a lot of disgruntlement between both these classes of employees. Of course, on a broader global level, it has also affected those organizations which are multinational, and that some of their American or European employees can avail these, but their Indian or Asian, South American and African employees can't avail this. So it has inherently created two classes of employees. And our society is one such place where there's absolutely a lot of discrimination already, and class formation, and this is just aggravating this entire formation of two classes.
Got it. So, what are, I mean, you've already spoken about it, but what are some of the challenges that you are seeing, Bhagya? And also, in a fun way, because we've always thought about this, right? What kind of jugaad can people do with these visas, Because I'm sure people will try to do a lot of fun things. I mean, fun, because you'll have more business, I think. But yeah.
A lot of people are doing a lot of jugaad. I mean, we Indians are known for this, right? So if there was an Olympics for jugaad, I think we would be born winners without even competing. So yes, there's a lot of jugaad that people are trying to do. A lot of companies are, as I mentioned, are looking to replace work permits and business visas into digital nomad visas, because one, they could be cheaper, two, they could be easily obtained, and three is that certain activities which they want to carry out, which would not be permissible under business visas, could be done under digital nomad visas. Let's say, for example, renting a house or an office space, or working with a client in the office for more than 2 days a week, something like that, which is not permittable under business visas, that could be done. So that is what a lot of companies are thinking of doing, but I would strongly advise against it, because there could be a lot of repercussions and consequences if get caught. And even if not caught, the thing is that there could always be it's not very ethical to do this, to flout laws, and send your employees to work from different jurisdictions on a visa that is not meant for that. Um, what I've started to also see is that so it's a very funny case. I was speaking to this global CHRO of one of the FANG companies, and he happened to mention that how people, there's this entire um, idea amongst a lot of people thinking that the employees are now dictating remote work, which to a certain extent is true, but not completely true. It is still the employers who would dictate remote work or return to office if whatever is applicable. And what is happening, at least for this particular company, is that some top designers from that company quit because the company wouldn't allow them to work from different jurisdictions. So they essentially did allow work from home, but then they asked the employees to remain the same legal and tax jurisdictions. And these employees quit because they wanted to work from anywhere, in the most liberal sense. But then these companies hired a lot of top-notch designers from India and some other Asian and Latin American companies, and they were very happy with it. And what he told me was that, this is such an interesting thing, and this is something that we should also keep in mind, is that talent mobility would always be in fashion. Cities won't die. Remote work won't create mass exodus of cities. Cities were not only the places of work, but they were actually places of cultural amalgamation, economic activities, and all sorts of financial activities. Same thing with talent mobility. If there's a certain class of employees who are quitting their jobs, there's always a class of employee that is looking for better standard of living and looking to replace those. And now the world is so globalized and such an intense competition when it comes to skills and talent, that a lot of people for that particular company, they hired, again, they replaced those people with some designers from India and Vietnam and Philippines who accepted 5% lesser salaries, who were as good as the people who quit, and they were more than happy to go and work from their Californian offices. So this entire, for a lot of people, remote work is kind of a perk or a benefit, or now they have started to think it's a right. But there's a major population in the world which is looking to make a better standard of living for themselves and for their families, who would be more than willing to accept what these people are throwing or rejecting. And this is very peculiar. This is what I would envision that the world would move into. There would be migration in both sense, direct migration, where a lot of Indians may fill those roles in American and European companies. And then there could also be a possibility where, just because now companies are going remote, some of these Indians who were earlier living in different countries may just come back and work from their hometowns and contribute into the economy.
Bhagyashree, there's another trend that we've sort of been noticing, which is the fact that a lot of companies, both in India and I think everywhere across the globe, are, I don't know if there's a better way to put this, but are sort of going back on their own words and saying, hey, remote isn't, sorry, it's not happening anymore. And a lot of people are, I mean, a lot of my own peers that I know of are getting strict deadlines, to sort of show up in the office just as it was before, probably with lesser number of working days, but that's again tentative. Only again another assumption that hey, third wave might not be as bad. What are your thoughts
Yeah.
on this? I mean, what do you think? Um, I mean, first off, is it the ethical thing to do from a both company standpoint and from the employees as well? And two, what do you think will happen? What are your projections around this?
Very, very interesting question, Varun. And I think this is one of the burning topics because there have been so many U-turns. Like Facebook, first they announced that everybody needs to be back in the office in September in their US offices. And then they said, no, now you could work from home permanently. This I would actually give two statistics here. Today in the morning, I was reading this report. This company VMware that we are all aware of. It's a global company. Of course, has its headquarters in the US and has a major chunk of population, even in India. So on their first day of return to work, only 90 employees showed up out of I think 8,000 employees they have in their American office. And that was like less than 1%. But their chief of people commented that this is because, it's kind of a dip the toe kind of situation. People are just testing. And then, of course, there's still the pandemic is still there, the virus is still there. A lot of people are very, very cautious of moving out and interacting with their colleagues in a closed environment. So we should not think that, what happened with VMware is that everybody wants to work remotely and they will never come to the office. Eventually, maybe a lot of employees would, or they may not. We don't know yet. And then there was this second very, very interesting stats that came up from Manning School of Business in the US. And they did a survey of about 3,000 employees of various corporations. And they found out that employees right now are still so confused about their return to work plans. Are they going to be back in the office? Are they going to be working from home? Would they be allowed to work from different jurisdictions? And the answer came from the corporates, because the corporates said that we don't know ourselves yet. We don't know if we want to be remote. We don't know if we want to go back to the office. What I've always said is that, basing the decision to turn into a hybrid or a remote team, especially on what happened in the last year, may not be the right thing to do, because last year was very, very unprecedented. Businesses weren't usual. Clients weren't, ordering the same amount of services or products that they usually did. Everything was in a state of lockdown. The important thing to consider is that moving forward, would your employees, or does your operation side has the bandwidth to handle that kind of pressure, like in a normal world, the kind of pressure that employees and operations would have in a remote setting, or would your employees collapse? So it's a very mixed, confused state the world is in right now. There are definitely a lot of policies announcements being made. A lot of them are being reeled back in. JP Morgan announced that irrespective of vaccinations, people need to be back into the office, and everybody the CEO received a lot of backlash. Another interesting thing was, if you remember what happened when Facebook announced that if the employees need to work outside of their Californian headquarters, employees would have to accept lower salaries. And that was also, a lot of people, kind of scrutinized the statement, and he also received some kind of flagging. But what he said was true. Because once you leave one jurisdiction and work from a different jurisdiction, the local labor laws come into effect, and that may essentially means restructuring of compensation and benefits. That could also mean that your salaries may either go lower, or go higher, depending on what the jurisdiction, the tax situations are. But the thing is that there's so much of euphoria around remote work that people are actually unable to understand the right reasons behind why companies are making one move or the other. So this is something that I don't think none of us could answer till the time, the world is virus free. And after that, I do reckon that the world would move towards a more work from home situation, where essentially employees would have more flexibility, a hybrid setting where they could choose between the office and working from home, or a co-working space within the same tax and legal jurisdiction. The possibility of working from anywhere would be very, very less, because there are massive legal and tax consequences to it, which I don't think the employer would be willing to undertake.
This is super interesting, actually, because the concept of satellite offices is sort of becoming more apparent in almost every city. Tier 2, tier 3 cities are sort of becoming the next IT hubs, at least in India they are. And the third thing is that
Yes.
even the thing that you said about the JP Morgan CEO doing these things, actually, I was going through Instagram, and I, funnily, and I sent this thing to Nisha as well, that I don't know if it was the JP Morgan CEO, one of the big CEOs there. It's like, hey, if you can go out to your favorite restaurant, just
Yes.
you saw that, right? You can come to
Yes.
office, and that was not a
Yes.
nice way to put things. I get that. Look, I
Yes.
mean, they might be, like you mentioned, like different labor laws might apply. It might just make things more complicated for the company. But that's not how you can't get somebody back to work at gunpoint. That is just plain
Yeah,
unethical.
it was that was very insensitive way to put it. But But this is what it is. I remember last year there was some HR head of one Indian company, I'm not going to name. She had posted, and it was very funny. She said that if you can go, so it was during Durga Puja, like October. She's like, if you can go out and do pandal hopping, you might as well come to the office. There was, of course, it was, her post was like, I don't even know her, but it showed up on my feed, and there were like so many reactions to it. And definitely it was not the right way to put it. But sometimes the thing is that we forget that it is still a world where the employers have the reins, not the employees. Employees can never have the reins. You can only try to snatch it or maybe stretch it that much, but the drivers would be the companies. And if, like I said, this FANG company, there was this another survey that said that 30% of the people are sorry, there are a lot of people, more than 70% of the people are ready to take pay they're ready to quit their jobs and take pay cuts than to give up on remote work. But we have to understand that all these surveys are carried out in the Western world, not in the emerging economies. Emerging economy, which is like more than 60% of the world's population, is a very different society. In India, if I were to ask, okay, I won't allow my employee to work remotely, I doubt if somebody would say, okay, if you're not going to let me work remotely, I'm going to quit the job. That thing won't come, because we are in a society where the talent is readily available and you are easily replaceable. And we know that. But that is the thing. I see a huge disparity between the concept of how people would want to work in a post-pandemic world when it comes to these Western countries and when it comes to these emerging economies. There's a whole lot of difference. And I think that is also the reason why a lot of these companies, when they rolled out their remote work policies, like I'll give you an example of Nokia. 2 days ago, Nokia announced that they would allow their Singapore, Norway, Paris, and Budapest based employees to work 3 days from home. But Nokia, as we know, is a multinational company. They didn't announce this for their Indian employees. This wasn't rolled out for their African employees. This wasn't rolled out for their South American employees. And why is that? So these global organizations, like I mentioned earlier, are also creating these two classes of employees. And this is kind of sad, because do you think the people in the emerging economies don't want that flexibility? I mean, when it comes to equality, and when you talk about building a culture of equality and diversity and inclusion, then this is exactly opposite to that process that you are going on with.
I mean, up until now, being merit had one definition, which is that, hey, if you're educated, if you're so and so things, you're classified as merit. But apparently, there are different classes of merit that are coming to light. So, which is quite sad.
Absolutely. And then come to think of it, the the emerging, I wouldn't keep saying Indian, but the emerging economy has the same talent, the same skills, but they don't have the same opportunities, not even from these companies.
Do you think India will ever roll out, these digital nomad visas, Bhagya, and what would that mean in an Indian context? If she's there, let her just show
So,
up.
yes, it's my daughter, and this is like
I
apart
know.
from
What is
working
up
from
there?
home.
We're more than
Yes.
happy to welcome. I mean, it's never too late for her to also to get started with podcasts and podcasting and everything.
Yeah, so yes, so this is my daughter, and I think this is the perk of working from home. You at least get to spend time with your daughter or with your son. So that's one thing. Sorry, Nisha, coming back to your question, I think India should, because depending because considering how many people from different countries come and work in India, I know there's a whole chunk of digital nomads who work from the beaches of Goa, Gokarna, or from the hilly regions of Himachal and Uttaranchal, and they're not doing it in the legal manner. India is as such a tourism hub. We have the cheapest internet connection in the world. Of course, we are a tech hub. It would only be prudent for the Indian government to roll out digital nomad visa so that we can attract top people to come and work from here, contribute to our economy. And a lot of these digital nomads would be anyway, they are concentrated in these smaller towns and cities, which would actually, be kind of, they would go into a state of revival or benefited from them contributing into the local economy. But as of now, India has no plans of, I mean, the last I know, we have no plans of ruling um, out digital nomad visas for the global workforce, but I think they should.
Just this one tiny follow up there, Bhagya. How should Indians apply for digital nomad visas if they want to go abroad? Right? If you can just kind of tell us that, and then we should be good to go.
And essentially how all remotely also could sort of help facilitate all of these things that we've just spoken about.
So thank you. The thing is that Indians who are looking to apply for these visas should actually go onto their respective country's website and fill the forms from there. I am not aware of the fact that if there are travel agents who are doing it in India, but anyway, because this is such a new visa, I wouldn't advise anyone to go to these experts to do that, rather than first study what the visas are, what activities you can do if you are indeed eligible for those visas from the respective government websites. So there are 18 countries in the world, like I mentioned earlier, they are offering. So all the information could be found there. All remotely, unfortunately, at this point, directly we cannot, but we do have partnerships with global talent mobility consultants who can help. And I would be more than happy to, connect anyone who wants to apply for with the right qualified person.
Brilliant. I think that brings us to the close of this quick take as well. Bhagyashree, thank you again for being a part of this. It was brilliant conversing with you. I'll also leave her previous episode that we've recorded with her in the description. I'll leave Bhagyashree's LinkedIn and All Remote's website as well in the description. Please be sure to get in touch with her if you have any queries. And yeah, thanks again for being a part of this quick take as well. This is Varun Nisha from the Edge podcast of CHROs. Thank you so much.
Varun, I think you should also list the
Yeah.
18 countries that are offering the digital
Yeah,
visa.
I'll probably do that as well. Yeah. Cool. Great. Then I'll see you guys in the next episode of the of Edge podcast with CHROs. Thanks again.